In this episode, we tear down a 1998 Specialized FSR ground control. Now this was a find that was teasing me on Facebook Marketplace for quite some time. Eventually the seller dropped the price to something reasonable and I picked it up. This is a bike back when I was a teenager I was quite curious to get hold of, but could never afford it, so I'm kind of reliving my youth a little bit with this one. So let's start with a quick overview of the bike. It's a 1998 Specialized FSR ground control. It's got one of these like THE muck-off crud catcher type things going on. It's got Manitou forks. These are the Specialized specific ones. Mavic rims, 138, so I'm looking forward to trying to reuse those. Diacomp brakes. It's got a lovely blue colour. Diacomp brake levers as well, and it's got a bit of an original sticker going on. Ritchie Force light handlebars. I really like the colour of this bike overall, this sort of translucent blue, it's really nice. It's got a Specialized branded chain set, and it comes with these quite a bit later SPD pedals. The chain stays in really good nick. It's a really good sign that the bike hasn't been abused. We've got the dork disc and the reflectors on the spokes, so it's probably never been really seriously mountain biked in its entire life. Got a RockShox Deluxe rear shock. We've got a Ritchie seat post that's been cut short, and it's far too short for me. I need something about 3 or 4 inches longer. And we have this big spodgy saddle, which I thought was a woman's saddle initially. And finally we have these super heinous bar ends that look like they've been tried to be colour matched to the frame colour, but not quite really working right. Overall, I think it's in a good condition, so I bought it. On the test ride I did before buying it, it shifted smoothly. The only slight negative was a tiny bit of top out on the forks. Other than that, it felt pretty decent, to be honest. The rear suspension was working, and it all felt really nice, so nothing to complain about. Out when I was recording this video just after I purchased it, one of the funny issues I've remembered is elastomer forks don't really work in the cold, so at this stage the fork felt pretty much locked out. So with those initial impressions completed, let's head back to my garage and tear this down. One thing that concerned me during the test ride was the bars felt far too high, so I want to try flipping this stem upside down first and see what it feels like. So with the stem flipped, I think this looks all sorts of wrong. It looks a bit roadie-esque, so I'm not liking this look at all. So I'm going to find a stem, probably a 0 degrees riser one, and put that on for the build, so look out for that in a future video. So with that little experiment out of the way, let's put the bike into the work stand and tear it down and uncover all the weirdness and little fun features that might be hidden on this 24-year-old bike. Because I want to completely tear the frame down, including all the pivots for the rear suspension, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to blast all the joints with some WD-40 to hopefully make removing the bolts a little bit easier and free them up if they've got stuck, because to be honest I doubt they've ever been taken apart and serviced in their life. So first job, blast them all with a lovely soaking of WD-40. With the WD-40 soaking away, I can trim all the cables for the brakes and the derailleurs. I'm going to remove the V-brakes. They look in pretty good condition, so I'm hoping to reuse these on the build. This thread lock on the bolt looks super fresh. It might be the first time these brakes have been removed since it was installed in the factory. Whoa, the brake boss looks super clean with no sign of corrosion. Amazing. When I tear down a bike, I like to keep all the parts in these Ziploc sandwich bags. That way, all the parts stay together and nothing gets lost. I just noticed there's some corrosion on the pin on the V-brake, so this is something I'm going to try to get sorted and tidy up a bit. Moving on to the rear V-brakes now. They come off easy and they're in good condition. I'm definitely going to try to reuse these. Let's remove this big spodgy saddle now. And to my surprise, it's a Specialized branded saddle. Was this the standard saddle that come on the bike? It feels real big and spodgy, like it might be a woman's saddle, but it's very unusual. I need to find a stock photo of the bike to find out. I wasn't sure what is the best strategy to remove this fender. I thought I might be able to cut the zip ties with scissors, but when I started to poke them through the gap between the fender and the frame, it felt like I would end up scratching the frame using these, so I changed tactic and tried something else. I thought I might be able to use a knife to catch the latch in the Ziploc, but that didn't seem to work either. I thought I'd try my cable cutters, but the jaws wouldn't open wide enough to get onto the zip tie, so I needed to try something else again. In the end, I just manned up and used a Stanley knife to cut through it and tried my best to avoid scratching the frame. The lower zip tie was a bit lower risk as I could cut through onto the fender itself. And to my surprise, with the zip ties cut, the fender didn't fall off. To my surprise, there was 2 strips of Velcro holding the fender in place. I'm in 2 minds about keeping this fender for the bike in the future. I kinda like the way it looks. What do you think? Put your thoughts in the comments. To bin or not to bin? That is my question. On to removing the pedals. There's always a moment of trepidation for me when I remove pedals, but luckily these ones come away from the cranks very easily. They're very dirty but very greased up, so good work to the person who installed these. Keeping the focus in the chainset area, it's time to remove these bolts and pull off these cranks. Again, like the pedals, there's much room for error in this area due to galvanic corrosion or the threads pulling out incorrectly in the crank when you use the extractor. So it's an area I'm always slightly nervous about. I always proceed slowly to ensure the crank extractor is not cross-threading itself and make sure it's all winched home before trying to tug the cranks off using the tool. Fortunately, the cranks came away relatively easy, and inspecting the spline on the other side, the square taper, it all looks in pretty good condition. This is my first time being able to inspect the driver's side of the swing arm. These are known to crack on these bikes, but apart from a little chain suck rash, it's all looking pretty good so far. On to the non-drive side now. Again, make sure the crank extractor is threaded in fully as far as you can and tighten it down with a wrench. Then tug the cranks off using the winch inside of the tool. I suspect this is the first time the cranks may have been off this bike. It was quite tough to remove the non-drive side. Pulling the bottom bracket out next. It broke away surprisingly easy, which is good, because there was the possibility of this being an aluminium frame and the bottom bracket being steel of galvanic corrosion and getting it seized in the frame. And look at that, it's a Specialized branded bottom bracket. I suspect this is the original BB for the bike, which kind of confirms my thought that the cranks may have never been off this bike before. The plastic cup from a non-drive side, now it hasn't got any tension on it, it's basically hand loose, so I just undid that by my hands with the tool. This dirty and greasy crankset can then go live in a sandwich bag to keep the dirt away from any other components. I'll clean this up at a later date. Splitting the chain next. I intend to put a new chain on this bike. I did check the chain before I bought the bike actually. It's always a good idea to check the chain when you buy the bike. That way you can get an indication if the cassette is completely ruined by the wear on the chain. But yeah, I'm going to get a new chain on it because it's only a 8-speed chain and it's dirty and greasy as all hell. So yeah, a new chain for this bike. One of the interesting things I found on the chain was it was branded as a SRAM chain. I think it's a PC58 looking at the logo. Do you think this chain's original to the bike, or is it an upgrade at some point in time due to wear and tear? Let me know in the comments. Time to remove this STX RC front mech from the bike next. The sticker's starting to fall off my bit. I'll try a bit of super glue to see if I can reattach that. But let's get it off the bike first because it's covered head to toe in grime. This 8-speed Dior Alex rear derailleur has to come off the bike next. I think I'm going to try to rescue this one for sure. It's a bit scratched up, but overall it looks like it's in pretty good condition despite being really grimy. And you know what happens next? In the bag. Time to remove the cable housings next. I like to temporarily retain these actually, as it helps trim the new ones to the correct size for the features on the bike. It's a top little tip for you there. Time to remove these heinous blue bar ends next. But I did notice something quite funny. I think these bar ends might have been a nice anodized blue at one point in time. Either way, I can't be asked to remove the paint and get down to the anodizing. So my plan is to lose them in such a way that humanity never has to deal with these ugly bar ends ever again. I don't plan on reusing these grips, so I'm going to remove them by popping a screwdriver under them and give them a blast of WD-40 so they slip off the bars really easy. If you plan on reusing your grips, don't do this, as the WD-40 will make them slip around constantly forever. The 8-speed grip shifters are in fairly decent condition, I would say. I'm going to retain these for use in the future build, I think. I don't think I'll reuse them for this bike though. I intend to reuse these Diacomp DP7 brake levers. I quite like the feel of them. They're kind of like Avids, to be honest. I think a little light polish and they will come up really nice. There's no rust or anything like that on them. So I'm going to retain these for the build in the future. There's a little worn away sticker on the right hand lever. I wonder what that might have said at one point in time. I'll try to remove it when I restore these. Time to remove the bars next. I kind of fancy reusing these bars, but they are quite narrow for the build. I'm in two minds about these. Fate yet to be decided. With the bike stripped of its drivetrain, it's time to remove the wheels. Assessing the front wheel, the hub is branded as a Specialized and is a cup and cone type bearing arrangement. The bearings feel smooth inside, so what I'll do is I'll take it apart, resurface it and get it back on the road, as I intend to reuse these wheels. The rear wheel has a Shimano Parallax rear hub. and oddly it has a Shimano skewer, which is quite interesting as the front skewer is unbranded. It's time to remove this grubby cassette next using the chain whip and freewheel tool. And whoa, there is absolutely no torque applied to this freewheel cap. It come off literally without any effort at all. That's so dodgy. The cassette pulled off with no problem at all, and it's time to lose the torque disc. Assessing the hub bearings, they feel nice and smooth, so what I'll do is I'll give them a service and I'll definitely be reusing this wheel set. Assessing the headset bearings, there's a slight notchiness about the dead ahead position. I bet the grease in here is fresh 1998, never been serviced grease. The stem comes off no problem. It's no surprise, I've removed it once already, as you saw earlier in the video. With a light tappy tap tap tap, preload washer can be released and we can get a look to see what state the headset is in. The bottom ball race looks dirty and grimy, but critically there's no rust. And the same can be said for the top one. It's absolutely filthy, but there's no rust. I think we might be able to reuse this headset. And finally onto the forks. Overall, the condition of them looks really good, apart from a bit of road grime here and there and everywhere. So all I'll do is I'll give them a quick service, hopefully lube up the elastomers, and that's all they'll need. So that's it for this video. In the next video I'm going to be stripping the frame down, preparing it for the build, restoring the paint and surfacing all the bearing points. So please join me in that. Hopefully it'll be done by next weekend, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!